Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Danny Show. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Blake Murphy. So, Blake Murphy is a multi platform sports journalist and host with proven NBA and MLB expertise and a passion for player development, analytics, labor relations. He has experience writing for the MLB, NHL, NFL, MMA, and WWE, and hosting audio shows about basketball, baseball, and music. Blake has a track record of strong and accurate reporting, an established portfolio of game reports, analysis, and features for a variety of audiences. He also has experience with print and mobile first media and with radio and television hosting. His strengths include efficiency and an in-depth sports knowledge base, a strong social media presence, and a background in business and operations management. He has obtained a Bachelor's of Commerce degree from Queen's University and a Master of Journalism from the University of British Columbia. Blake is the current Blue Jays and Raptors analysis and host across Sportsnet's audio, television, and digital platforms. And now Mr. Blake Murphy joins me live. How are you doing, Blake?
Good, man. I gotta update the LinkedIn a little bit. How are you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. No problem. So yeah, I got that from your LinkedIn, but it worked out. I'm happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, man. Great shirt, by the way.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. So, firstly, wanted to know what inspired you to pursue a career in sports journalism?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I mean, I always loved sports, but I never really considered it like something you could do as a career. So I
Mhm.
went and got a business degree, and then I was enrolled in law school and like working a job using my actual degree. And I was like just writing for fun every once in a while, just to like, send it to some friends. And then around like 2008, 2009, blogs became a bit more of a thing.
Right.
So just having fun with that and with Raptors Republic. And I hit a point where like I had deferred law school a couple times. So I
Mhm.
had to make a decision on that. And I was just like, nah, I'm having so much fun doing the writing thing. Like I'd like to chase that and see if it can be a thing. And it can be a thing. So yeah, it was not a well laid out plan, but it was, even when I was like headed for law school, like in my head, the idea was, well, the combination of business and law, maybe I can get my foot in the door with a team or something like that. So it was always in the back of my head to do something in sports.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear. So, I wanted to know, as a journalist, has there been, probably there has been, a memorable moment or a game involving a sport that kind of solidified your passion even more for journalism?
Yeah, I mean, covering the Raptors championship was pretty incredible. Now that was pretty far along in my career at that point. So like maybe that doesn't count. Maybe I was too established at that point. But there was one earlier in my career, and this was one of the first times I ever had access as media to a Raptors game. And it was before the Raptors quite came up. So this would have been, I think, early in the 2015-2016 season.
Okay.
And after a game, this was before there were like big media demands on the Raptors every single game and stuff like that. And before Kyle started doing his bit of like always giving a hard time to media.
Right.
And I had like a really quick post game conversation with Kyle Lowry one time, just like ask him his process for like, I think he had like come up with a steal and like the Raptors had like a 3-on-2 in transition. And he just
Mhm.
like made a play that like you wouldn't have thought to make. And I just
Right.
asked him about it a little bit and he walked me through the like, okay, well, if I had done this, then the defender's going to do that, and then my guy's got to do this, and if I do
Yeah.
this, and he kind of walked me through the decision set, and it was just really cool. It was like a cool moment of like, oh yeah, this isn't just like watching what you see and writing about it. Like, there's also an element of like, it's very cool to be in the room. It's cool to build a
Mhm.
relationship with players. You're going to get much smarter as an analyst and as a sports fan getting to talk to these guys and stuff.
Exactly.
Also, it was like I was a day one Kyle Lowry guy, so in the back pocket, it was like, man, this is really cool to chop it up with Kyle. So that was probably an early one, and then yeah, the championship run is like that's. I mean, if anyone got to cover that and question their career choices after that, I don't know, man. I don't know what you were doing.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm glad that the championship run was a great memory for you. It is for me as well, and many of us Raptors fans out there. So, my next question to you is, as a journalist, what challenges have you faced in your career, and how have you managed to overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots. The biggest one in sports media is that there just aren't very many jobs, and you could be awesome at your job, and you could think you're doing a great job, and none of us are ever really going to have that much job security, unfortunately. And they're
Right.
just like, even when I've made decisions like I was at the Score and I left to do my own thing full time, and that was a
Mhm.
big risk of is there going to be enough freelance income, and outlets are closing all the time and things like that. And then when I went to the Athletic, and then when I left the Athletic to go to Sportsnet, it's like, okay, well, the Athletic is one of the only places that like actually hires sports media at this point. Even now, like I'm happy at Sportsnet. Say I wasn't, nobody else hires sports media at this point. So that's kind of the biggest challenge. There are some other challenges, like lifestyle wise, you work a lot of nights and weekends and things like that.
Mhm.
More to the like, sports journalism is like lowercase j journalism, but you
Mhm.
do run into some stuff of like, you got to cover a Terrence Davis assault case, a Jonte Porter gambling scandal. You have to balance, you have to be fair to your audience by telling it like it is. And sometimes that means being negative and criticizing. But you also have to balance that, you got to see those people the next day and how to, how to manage all of that. The easiest thing with any of this stuff is with the job security stuff, there's nothing you can do about it really, other than
Right.
do a good job. So you can kind of push it aside. And then with any of the like journalism, like ethics or analysis trade-offs or whatever, as long as you're like the goal is just be accurate and be correct, and then no one can, no one can really be that upset if you report something that happened in a court case or a court document, if you write about or analyze something that the team really messed up, if you
Mhm.
disagree with the transaction, whatever, as long as you're fair and as long as you're accurate, and after the fact, if you're right a lot of the time, that helps too. That's kind of how you deal with it. I don't think we run into nearly as many challenges as like big J journalism, in politics with world issues and stuff like that. It's a little lighter day to day on the sports side.
Right, right. I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that, man. So, during your career in journalism, which place in this industry have you learned the most skills from, you think?
Like in terms of employer or just like experience? What do you mean specifically there?
Employer or experience, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much substitute for the time that I spent like on the road with the team a little bit. So that would have been while I was at the Athletic. That's the one time, that's the one stop I was at where I had budget to travel with the team. And I wasn't like at every single game or whatever, but you learn a lot more about the inner workings of a team, the chemistry of a team, what the like physical and mental toll is of traveling all the time and stuff like that. You also get way better access when you're on the road because there's less media
Definitely.
around. So from a learning about the sport and learning about how everything runs and stuff like that, probably that. And then I would say from a skill set standpoint, the 2015-2016 season is when I first went independent full time. I left the score and was doing Raptors Republican stuff. And that was the first year the 905 existed. And I used that 90 because I didn't have a full time Raptors credential at that point, but I could get into 905 games. I grinded those 905 games like crazy, like writing feature stories that like not a lot of people would read, or like doing like play breakdowns, X's and O's breakdowns. And I did that stuff because I needed the practice. Like I needed to become a better analyst. I needed to become a better feature writer and stuff like that. So like that first year where like no one was down in the G League, no one was caring or covering it or whatever, like skill set wise, that was huge because it was like it didn't make me very much money, but it was like, okay, there's no like the pressure's off. It's low leverage here. It's like a guy coming into a game like a 30-point game and getting some shots up, right? It's like you
Right.
need that. You need those reps, but it's probably nicer that it happens when the game's not on the line.
Exactly, exactly. I totally understand what you mean. Um, so how do you kind of see this whole future of journalism, the journalism landscape, evolving with social media content creation and particularly the realm of digital media right now in
Yeah,
place?
it's really fascinating because like when I first started, and this ages me, but like 2008 or 2009 when I first started writing for fun, that was when like people were like, can this whole like blogging and online writing thing actually work?
Mhm.
And the answer is no, not if you want to make money off of it long term, but yes, as a way of like creating jobs in the industry and
For
changing the
sure.
perspective of the industry and stuff like that. So as someone who came up through that, I really feel like I have to be, hyper aware of the fact that things are going to change, right? Like it's not going to be newspapers forever, and then it's not going to be online, like digital writing forever. And
Mhm.
now it's like, okay, it's more YouTube, Twitch, TikTok oriented. I'm a
Yep,
little skeptical of TikTok as like a content delivery mechanism,
for
but
sure.
we see like YouTube numbers across all of YouTube relative to cable television or whatever are insane.
Yeah,
If you're an advertiser, your advertising dollars probably go further on YouTube now than they do. You also with something like YouTube and individual content creators, there is like a hyper nicheified audience where if someone is finding that page, you already know they're locked in. So I
Yeah.
find it fascinating. If I was coming up now, like if 2009 were now, I would probably be, instead of grinding all the writing that I did, I would probably be YouTube focused, because that's where the opportunities would be. That's where the paths in would be. That's where like the people, again, I'm aging myself here, but like when I was in my early mid 20s, I
Mhm.
would read a ton of blogs and like, you know, yeah, I would read a ton of blogs and listen to a ton of podcasts, and that's what got me even more hooked. I'd
Mhm.
imagine someone that age now is watching YouTube videos and like,
Exactly.
yeah, downloading the podcast version or whatever for your
Mhm.
commute, but it's a lot more video oriented. It's a lot more direct. It really does reflect what we saw with like the kind of blogging boom maybe 15 years ago. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I think I don't think a ton is going to change big picture in terms of like the TV product is what is going to drive sports, right? That's the biggest revenue generator and things like that. But
Mhm.
in terms of what the audience wants to supplement their fandom with, once that game is over or before that game starts, the audience has so much more choice now. I think individual content creation is great for that respect. It's great for fans to have that choice, and it should make us all sharper, right? There's more
Exactly.
competition. You can't assume someone's going to come to your stuff. You got to be on your game, or the next guy or the next person, I should say, is going to steal some of your audience, and because they're ahead of the curve or they're speaking to Raptors fans or Jays fans or whatever in a way that you haven't caught up with or kept up with.
Exactly. I totally agree with you, man. I think like for me specifically in my generation, I was more into the traditional journalism, and then digital came, and we were all kind of converted into digital media. And like you said, YouTube now you can get advertisers, and you get more views through YouTube videos, let's just say, than a television network. So it's actually really fascinating to be a part of it.
Yeah. And like I don't have I don't have a TikTok. I have a YouTube, but it's just like where I keep like demo stuff. I don't
Right.
really like produce YouTube stuff. But that's because like I'm already in right now, and that's not my job. My job is a radio host and writing sometimes. But yeah, if I was trying to like get a foot in the door, now I will be all over YouTube. I would be, that I hate this term, but like your brand building, when like a huge difference I think too of YouTube versus when you're trying to cut it as a blogger is like when I'm blogging, my face isn't there. You can see a little bit of my personality in my writing, but like you don't know me nearly as well. And like via YouTube or whatever the content delivery for like independent creators on video, it's like you get to know that person a lot more and probably invest in that person a lot more, because you
Exactly.
feel like you know them a little more than you do, Blake Murphy at Fangraphs.
Right, exactly. Totally agree with you. So, segueing now from the journalism questions to the Toronto Raptors, how do we assess the Raptors right now overall, the whole team moving into the off season right now?
Yeah, it's there should be a sense of urgency is maybe not the right word because Scotty's so young and the future's so bright with him.
Right.
But this is going to be, because you're going to sign Scotty to a max rookie scale extension this summer, and
Mhm.
you're going to give IQ a new deal. This
For
is
sure.
probably the last time you're going to have meaningful cap flexibility for a little while. So
Hmm.
you lost that pick to the Spurs, which is whatever. People can make a case for keeping the pick this year, conveying it. You didn't get to keep it. You got to move on. But
Right.
you have picks at 19 and 31. You have a lot of cap flexibility. You have some key free agents. You're not going to be in a spot like that offseason wise for a little while here. Like Scotty's going to be locked in, IQ, RJ on full money deals not that far in the future. And that's fine. Those are good young players. But like in terms of, hey, could you dip into the free agent pool, or could you use Bruce Brown's contract to bring someone else back? Could if you don't want to use 19 and 31, you also own all your own picks in the future now, plus the extra one from Indy. Do you want to do something like that? And I'm not advocating that they make a win now move necessarily. Like they chose the more patient path. They should probably ride that out here. But this is the last offseason for a while that you're going to have all of these different options for building out your roster. So I really do think it's a pretty make or break offseason. And I feel that way from a this is how the cap works and contracts work perspective, but also from the perspective of this front office hasn't had the best couple of off seasons in a row. And like,
Exactly.
I'm still going to like chips down. I'm going to believe that a Masai Ujiri led front office, Bobby Webster, Dan Tolzman, all those people, even though they lost Teresa Resch to the WNBA side now, I like there's enough track record there to think they can, get back on the right track. But they haven't done that well shopping in the bargain bin. Grady's going to be fine, but they haven't hit on that like second round undrafted guy in a little while. The Malachi miss still kind of hurts and things like that. So pretty pivotal offseason for them, draft and free agency and trade wise. It makes it very, very exciting for
Yep.
our purposes. It just, yeah, if I were them, I'd be like, you gotta nail this summer, even if that doesn't mean you win 50 games in 2024,
Right.
2025, but you got to look back a year, 18 months from now and be like, yes, we nailed that offseason. We nailed that trade, that draft pick, that use of the mid-level or use of cap space or whatever, because you're not going to have all these weapons that many more times.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. It's a lot of big question marks this offseason. So I wanted to know, which offseason moves do you specifically want them to do? Do you want them to do more draft picks this upcoming draft, or do you want them to move those draft picks in the upcoming draft, or do you want them to go out in the free agent market and explore the options there?
Yeah, it's tough. There are so many different ways things could go, and I think a lot of it hinges on whether there's a market for Bruce Brown.
Right.
We've expected since the trade deadline passed and he wasn't dealt that the way this will play out is if they know they have a trade for Bruce Brown, they'll pick up that option, and
Exactly.
if they don't know they have a trade for Bruce Brown, they won't. So we'll know a couple days after, and we could even have like that option decision is like June 29th or something like that. We could
Right.
find out a couple days before at the draft. There's always like people get tripped up by this a little bit, but there's always those trades on draft nights that are reported and then they don't actually happen until like July 6th because
Hmm.
the new cap year comes and there are like more teams have flexibility and stuff like that. But I think we'll know pretty early on that. I think, probably the way that it'll probably shake out, if I had to guess, is they do find a home for Bruce Brown, but it doesn't return. You're not doing backflips about the return. Maybe you get a low end rotation piece. Maybe you take back some bad salary and you get a pick for your troubles. But Bruce Brown, like if there was a first round pick on the table for Bruce Brown at the deadline, he'd be gone.
Exactly.
They would have traded that.
For
So I
sure.
don't know you're gonna aim that high.
Hmm.
I think if I had to guess, Gary's probably back.
Okay.
It just like it's not that strong a free agent market. So you could trade or decline Bruce's option,
Right.
renounce Gary, and sign a pretty decent guy and then resign quickly. But
Exactly.
that guy isn't like the list of free agents is not that spicy. So I think what they would probably do is in that case, keep Gary on if you can keep him on a reasonable deal. And then you'd still have enough flexibility where you could outbid a team on like the mid-level guys. So say, I don't know, Malik Monk's going to get more than this, but let's use Malik
Mhm.
Monk as an example. Let's
Sure.
say Malik Monk is about to sign, a 4-year deal for the mid-level and you're the Raptors and you come in and you still have a little bit of flexibility. So you can go, okay, the mid-level's 13 million. We'll give you 16 million a year. Like a little advantage like
Yep.
that is helpful with the cap flexibility. So this
Hmm.
is not the sexiest offseason, but I don't know that like they're not close enough to competing that if a star becomes available, you'd be able to make the move and the star be like Donovan Mitchell would be an awesome pairing with Scotty Barnes, but
For sure.
the Raptors don't have the prospects for that, and I don't know that Donovan Mitchell would be thrilled with that versus the other option. So
For
I
sure.
think you do have to kind of how do you maintain how do you get the team better and then keep yourself in that position where if there are star trades later, like
Hmm.
unfortunately you're just like the way to get top talent is trade or draft, and
Right.
they didn't keep their pick. And they're probably not going to be bad enough next year to get like the top. Like they're not. I don't think they're going to get Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey. Like I think they'll be a little too good for that. And
Right.
maybe you're picking late lottery again. You
Yeah.
can get good players like that, but similar to what I said earlier, you got to hit on those picks then. So this is a wishy-washy answer, but
Exactly.
I've gotten a bit the last couple of years I've had a little bit more trouble nailing down their plans because they've been so like, oh well, flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. And
Right.
I don't know if they're gonna like I'll lose my mind a little bit if they do that again this offseason. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, we kept Bruce Brown and we re-signed Gary and we
Yeah.
signed the next Dennis Schroeder to a
Uh,
mid-level, but
yeah.
we're flexible. So I don't know. This isn't a great answer, but
Yeah. I know what
it's
you mean.
if it was a sexier free agent class, I would
Yeah,
have a clear opinion. It would be like clear the deck, get the 40 million in cap space that you can find your way to and make a splash. But Pascal and OG are the two top free agents, basically.
exactly, exactly. I
The
hate
top two that like other than like, like LeBron and Paul George and those guys who aren't coming here.
exactly. I feel like you said, the Raptors fans right now hate the word flexibility. They've been hearing it for years,
Yeah.
and
Jays fans too, man.
exactly,
It's
exactly.
patience and flexibility. I don't do yoga, man. I'm not this flexible.
Exactly, same here, man. And I think with the Raptors, I don't know for you, but for me as a Raptors fan, after the 2019 championship run, everything kind of went downhill for the whole team. I mean, they had to do a whole, start up with the whole new, look for the franchise, making Scotty Barnes the face of the franchise and bringing in quickly Barrett to complement him. And now we have to assess what are they going to do, go young, of course, that's the main goal. But like you said, Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr., they're in the limbo, right? Are we going to
Yeah.
re-sign them? So it's right now it's troubling times, but down the road, I know there's going to be, those glory years like we had in 2019.
Yeah, they'll get back there. It's just, I mean,
Exactly.
like the NBA is so fluid right now. I tweeted this after Denver got eliminated. Like, we're about to have the sixth different champion in 6 years, and no champion has made it past the second round the year after they won the title in 6 years.
Exactly.
Like, that's
Exactly.
how quickly things change now. Like, Indiana didn't look like this 2 years ago, and then Halliburton pops, and suddenly the pieces fit better, and you're like, oh,
Exactly.
we should trade for Pascal. Still stupid of them to have traded away Buddy Hield for second round picks, but that's a separate thing. But like these
Exactly.
things can change pretty quickly. And the key is like you got to have good players for things to change. Like the Knicks were able to capitalize on this and trade for OG and stuff like that because they acquired good players and they built with good players. None of these teams went from having no good players to suddenly being a playoff team.
Exactly.
So that's why for me in the offseason, like front of mind is like here, like you got to get more talent in the door, whatever that looks like. We can nitpick on the specifics, but you got to get more talent in the door because you didn't have enough this past year. And even if you really like Scotty, Grady, IQ, RJ, and Gary, like good teams like Denver, the defending champs, just didn't have enough good players for the second round of the
Yeah.
playoffs.
Minnesota
Like
had better ones.
you got to get more bodies in the door, more talent in the door. So how whether that's free agent trade or you just absolutely nail your two draft picks, I don't know about that at 19 and 31 in this draft, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see how the Raptors season, off season that is, unfolds.
Yeah.
Moving along, I wanted to know your NBA playoff predictions. I mean, Minnesota just beat Denver
Ooh.
last night. So it's Dallas, Minnesota West, Boston, Indiana in the East. Who's going to be victorious in the respective conference finals, and who will meet each other in the finals and ultimately win the
Yeah.
Larry O'B?
This is a tough one because my rooting interest is anyone but Boston. I
Mhm.
just don't want Boston winning. I don't think the Pacers can lock in enough defensively against Boston. Like obviously Indiana has a very high ceiling offensively, but Boston just hit more threes than like any team in the history of the NBA. Like they can keep up offensively.
Right.
So I think Boston will handle Indiana. The other one's fascinating because like Minnesota is the best defense we've seen in like a decade since the like Kawhi 2015 Spurs is I think the last time a defense was this good relative to league average. So you have that, but you also have Luca and Kyrie, where like Kyrie has like 35-foot range, and Luca's whole thing is like I'm gonna break you down and have open shooters. Like suddenly PJ Washington is gonna be Steph Curry spotting up for a series.
Right.
I think in that one I will lean Minnesota. I just think the defensive upside is so high
Exactly.
there, and with Mike Conley back, everything fits a little better.
Sure.
Everything fits a little better offensively. It's gonna be a tough one, man. I'm really excited for that series. Like it's this is an oversimplification, but Luca came third in MVP voting and is at times looks like the best player in the world. Can Ant match that? And if so, Minnesota's got the defense to do the rest.
Right.
I don't like a team can stay hot from three for multiple rounds, but like Dallas has ridden some pretty hot shooting to get here too. And I wonder if against a Minnesota defense it runs out. So I'll say Minnesota Boston final, and I'll pick Minnesota purely because I don't want to see Boston win.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. I think Minnesota, in my opinion, are the favorites to win the Larry OB this year. Because looking at Minnesota, their whole lineup and their bench, they have a full team. They have guys that pop off instantly for them, like a Nas Reed and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and like Mike Conley. When I thought Mike Conley went to Minnesota, I thought maybe he's just gonna, just come off the bench for a few minutes and play okay. But he's popping off at his age right now. He's playing like Memphis Mike Conley, so it's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And I mean, it's great to see for him. Like, I have friends who are Wolves fans. It's cool to see that.
Yeah.
It's cool to see Ant take this step. And then like Mike
Yeah.
Conley is like the most well-liked guy. Like it's him and Drew Holiday as like the
Right.
guy everyone in the NBA likes and like wants
Exactly.
to see do well. So
Exactly.
it's cool to see that as well, even if yeah, I mean, especially if he could take out Boston. It's like there's a small part of me that, and less so now that the Raptors have won the championship. It's like I don't really want to like root for someone else to win. But
Right.
yeah, the Wolves probably have the most cool stories at this point. No disrespect to Pascal, who would be nice to see win. I just don't think the Pacers have
Yeah,
the
exactly.
juice.
Exactly, exactly. Blake, thank you so much for coming on the show. Final question. Um, any advice for aspiring broadcasters like myself or anyone who wants to get into the sports media and journalism industry?
Yeah, for sure. There are a couple things. I mean, the big one is reps. Whether you're doing interviews like this, just you to the camera, YouTube stuff, whether you're writing, the reps are the most important because that's how you find your voice. That's how you find your style. Unfortunately, watching yourself back or reading your work back is going to be a part of that as well. Like I still, not my show that's on TV, but when I do like TV hits before a Raptors game or a Jays game or whatever, I still watch those back to try to find ways that I can improve or stuff that I'm not good at and need to get better at. So that stuff's important. The reps is really, really big. I mean, I think I do this less now, but like consuming the content of people who you really like will like help you as well, right? Like if you are
Definitely.
watching videos of people who you think are good and you enjoy, that'll help inform your style a little bit. I'm not saying bite someone's style. I'm just
Right.
saying the more that's in your brain of like, yes, this is what it looks like. That's kind of what I want to do. And this is maybe more on the writing side than on the video side. But I find that stuff helpful. Also, I mean, there's going to have to be an element of patience. Like, unfortunately in the industry, like it takes a lot of time. And I had the benefit of like, well, I have a degree to fall back on, and like I don't mind living like a degenerate for a few years making no money.
Right.
Not everyone's like financial and family situation, stuff like that, is the same. So some people can be more patient than others. I'm not saying so. I'm not saying hey, everyone should do a bunch of work for free.
Right.
But you got to be a little bit patient in the industry, whether it's radio, TV, writing, whatever. The big thing is reps, though. And then also, I mean, this should go without saying, but I always find it's worth reminding because it is such a competitive industry in the sense that there aren't that many jobs. It's like you still got to be like a good teammate, a good peer, a good friend, and stuff like that. Like you can't let the competition of there are so few jobs make you treat people differently because like that takes some of the fun away from it. And then people wanting to work with you is an important thing too. So yeah, try to keep that in mind as much as it is competitive.
Amazing, man. Amazing advice. Thank you so much for the advice. And thank you for coming on the show, Blake Murphy, everyone. You can follow him on his social handles. I'll put all of them in the description down below if you want to connect with him. Blake, thanks so much for doing this, man. I had a lot of fun talking with you.
Thanks, Daniel. Keep up the good work, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day.